Have you ever felt invisible at your job? Like you're just a cog in a giant machine, and no one really sees the effort you put in every single day. Well, today I'm going to tell you a story about someone who felt exactly that way. A man named Ben, who was, by all accounts, just the janitor. But this isn't just a story about cleaning floors. It's a story about how the most overlooked person can become the most important. Ben worked at Innovate Inc., a bustling tech company known for its cutting-edge gadgets. The offices were a whirlwind of activity, filled with brilliant engineers, sharp-suited executives, and ambitious young marketers. They were the stars of the show, celebrated for every successful launch and every spike in stock price. Ben, on the other hand, moved through this world like a ghost. He arrived after everyone left and was gone before the first person arrived. His job was to erase the traces of the day, the coffee spills, the overflowing trash cans, the dusty desks. He knew the company's secrets, not the corporate ones, but the human ones. He knew who worked late, who was a messy eater, and who left motivational quotes on their whiteboards. He saw the stress and the triumphs, all from the quiet solitude of the night shift. He took immense pride in his work, believing that a clean, orderly space helped these brilliant minds do their best work. Yet, to most, he was just the janitor, if they even knew his name at all. One evening, as Ben was emptying the trash in the main conference room, he noticed something unusual. The big whiteboard, usually covered in complex algorithms and marketing slogans, was wiped clean except for a single, desperate message scrawled in the corner. Project Nightingale is a failure. We're sunk. Ben had heard whispers about Project Nightingale. It was the company's biggest and most ambitious project yet, a revolutionary device that was supposed to change the industry. The entire company's future was riding on it. Seeing that message felt like a punch to the gut, even for him. He felt a strange sense of ownership, a connection to the place he so meticulously cared for. The next few weeks were tense. The vibrant office energy was replaced by a heavy cloud of anxiety. Ben saw worried faces, overheard hushed, frantic conversations, and cleaned up more crumpled up design drafts than ever before. He learned that the device was overheating, a critical flaw that the best engineers in the company couldn't solve. The launch date was looming, and panic was setting in. Late one Friday night, the office was deserted except for Ben. He entered the main engineering lab to clean. The prototype for Project Nightingale was sitting on a workbench, surrounded by diagnostic tools and discarded components. Ben was always careful not to touch anything on the engineers' desks, but his curiosity got the better of him. He gently circled the device, his eyes tracing its intricate design. He wasn't an engineer, but he had a different kind of expertise. For years, he had worked as a maintenance man, fixing everything from complex industrial cooling systems to delicate HVAC units. He understood airflow, heat dissipation, and the simple mechanics of how things stay cool. As he looked at the sleek, sealed casing of the prototype, a thought struck him. It was a beautiful design, minimalist and modern, but it was practically airtight. There were no ventilation grills, no pathways for hot air to escape. He remembered fixing an old server unit once that had the exact same problem. It was a simple, fundamental error, the kind that's so obvious it's easy to miss when you're focused on complex software and microchips. The engineers, in their quest for aesthetic perfection, had forgotten the basic physics of heat. Ben hesitated. Who was he to question the work of geniuses? He was just the janitor. They would probably laugh at him, or worse, he could get fired for meddling. He stood there for a long time, wrestling with his thoughts. He could just walk away, clean the floors, and go home. It wasn't his problem. But then he thought about the faces of the employees, the stress, the fear of losing their jobs. He thought about the company he had, in his own way, dedicated himself to. Taking a deep breath, he picked up a discarded notepad and a pen. He drew a simple diagram of the device's casing. He wasn't a draftsman, but he carefully sketched out where small, discrete vents could be placed, drawing arrows to show how the air would flow, pulling cool air in and pushing hot air out. He explained his reasoning in simple, clear terms, based on his years of practical experience. He wrote, "It needs to breathe," at the top of the page. Then, with a trembling hand, he placed the note right next to the prototype, where he knew the lead engineer would see it first thing in the morning. When Monday morning rolled around, the lead engineer, a brilliant but stressed-out woman named Dr. Aris Thorne, walked into the lab expecting another day of failure. She saw the note. At first, she was annoyed. Who had been touching their multi-million-dollar prototype? But as she read the simple note and looked at the crude drawing, she froze. It needs to breathe. It was so simple, so fundamental, they had all completely overlooked it. In their focus on the complex internal electronics, they had ignored the simple box it was housed in. She and her team immediately got to work, drilling a few small, strategic vents into a test casing, just as Ben's diagram had suggested. They ran the diagnostics. The temperature, which had previously skyrocketed into the red zone, now held steady, perfectly within the optimal range. It worked. The problem was solved. The room erupted in cheers. Project Nightingale was saved. A company-wide meeting was called. The CEO, beaming, announced that the critical flaw had been fixed and the project was back on track. He praised Dr. Thorne and her team for their brilliant out-of-a-box thinking. Dr. Thorne stepped up to the microphone. She thanked her team, but then she said, "Actually, the person who truly saved this project isn't on my team. In fact, most of you probably don't even know his name." A hush fell over the crowd. The solution came from our night janitor, Ben. She held up the piece of paper with Ben's drawing on it. He saw what all of us missed because he had a different perspective. He saw the problem not as an engineer, but as someone who understands how things work in the real world. She then asked Ben, who had been quietly standing at the back of the room, to come forward. For the first time, all eyes in the company were on him, not as a ghost in the background, but as a hero. The room exploded into a standing ovation, a thunderous applause that was all for him. From that day on, everything changed. Ben was no longer just the janitor. He was given a new role as a practical solutions consultant, a title they created just for him. He was invited to brainstorming meetings, not for his technical knowledge, but for his common sense perspective. He would listen quietly and then point out simple, practical flaws that the engineers, lost in their complex theories, had missed. He helped solve dozens of other small, nagging problems, saving the company countless hours and dollars. But more than that, his story changed the culture of the company. People started to see the value in every single employee, regardless of their job title. They understood that good ideas can come from anywhere, and that sometimes the most brilliant solution is the simplest one. Ben's story became a legend at Innovate Inc., a powerful reminder that you should never underestimate the quiet ones, the observers, the people working in the shadows. Because sometimes the person who cleans the floors is the one who holds the key to saving everything. So, the next time you feel invisible, remember Ben. Remember that your unique perspective, your unique experiences have incredible value. You might not be in the spotlight, but you see things others don't. And one day, that unique vision might be exactly what everyone needs. Thank you so much for watching. If this story inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had an experience where an unexpected person saved the day. I'd love to hear it. Until next time, keep an eye out for the everyday heroes all around you.